Welcome, everyone. My name is John Werner. It's great to be here. So 30 years ago, this guy, who was sort of the Cary Grant at MIT, convinced the then president of MIT to add to the list gallery, which is downstairs, a lab. And this is Nicholas Negroponte. He said, let's create a media lab. And the way he came up with that idea was he was standing in front of a big mainframe with a number of other faculty at MIT. And it occurred to him that the future was technology was going to be a medium for a number of things. And he said, let's create a media lab. And this is the original media lab, the building right over here. It's E15 because it's on that side of the dome. We're in E14, odd, even, different sides of the dome. That's an MIT thing. And the keynote speaker was Steve Jobs. He was wearing an Armani suit because he was at Next Computer. Martha Stewart did the catering. Apparently it was catered really well. And for 30 years, the Media Lab had a great run. And E-Ink came out of it. What became Google Glass, the cyborgs, that was a presentation that ended up turning into the airbag. Nicholas wrote, Being Digital created one laptop per child. And today, there's close to 30 labs here, 30 groups at the Media Lab, of which Camera Culture, which many of us are from, are one of them. And these are labs that you wouldn't find at BU or Wake Forest in name. They're sort of bizarre words kind of stuck together. And because the lab is underwritten probably a third by corporate sponsors, TCS being one of them, the labs form more diverse teams and take on broader research because of this unique relationship. And in academia, there are not that many situations like this. And Joey, the head of the lab now, Nicholas is still here, but Joey, a guy who brought the internet to Japan, who really believes in networks and the power of networks, and one of the founders of Creative Commons and early investor in Twitter, said, let's really think about how we can do good in the world and how we can have impact. And this is a filter that he uses. And he's also been saying, instead of demo or die, which was what Nicholas said, make sure it works when the sponsors are here, but if they walk out the building and it falls apart, it's okay. Let's actually deploy. Let's create things that can have impact, that can go to scale and be deployed and make an impact on the world. And so through our work at Emerging Worlds, I've had the privilege of going to India 10 times the last bunch of years. I didn't collect the miles. I felt guilty doing that, and people said that I should feel guilty that I didn't collect the miles. But I saw great young people who want to do good in India. These are some images I shot. And this gentleman oversees 112 million people. He's the chief minister for the state that we do a lot of work in, and he's really interested in what we're doing. And here's the mayor of Nasik, one of the cities that we're working with. We're pointing to the clock because it's almost 1 in the morning, and we were at his house, working together. And India is just an incredible place and a lot of opportunities to do things. So we've been running these events where we bring the best innovators. We get like 1,000 innovators to apply. We take 100, and we have them work on solving some of the biggest problems using technology. And there's a CTO of TCS coming. There's Rao, some others. And we also have fun. Now, I mentioned the Media Lab was founded 30 years ago. Well, what's going to happen in the next 30 years? So for India, it's going to probably grow to 1.7 billion people. And it's probably going to go from being the 7th largest economy to the 3rd largest economy in the world. That's 30 trillion. And right now, there are 20 million students in school, in university. And there are another 5 learning online, and there are 4 million that are learning through vocational education. But what I find interesting is in some other countries like Germany, there are 3 million that are apprenticing as a way to learn. And in Japan, there are 10 million students that are apprenticing. But in India, there are only 400,000 students apprenticing. And the platform that we're trying to create isn't a traditional apprenticeship where the master teaches the young, but it's bidirectional. And by getting the innovators to come together, we're creating this bidirectional relationship. And right now, 1 million Indians are looking for jobs every month. And I mentioned India is going to be the 3rd largest economy. Well, I feel what we're doing with emerging worlds could help direct what kind of largest economy that is. And we're also looking and doing what we've done in India, in Mexico. We're also looking at what we've done in India, in Brazil, and in Africa, and in the Middle East. And this guy, Ramesh, who just stepped out for a minute, has had a vision that we can do great things. And this little hexagon is his way of saying to us, don't do what everyone else is doing, go a step beyond. And there's a whole other talk on that. That's for another day. And what I like about Ramesh is, I don't know if you've been to Nasik, but that's where he grew up. He's the one that created the website. Now, he didn't invent the web. He just was the one who said, look, Nasik deserves to have a website, and he was the first one to do it in 1992. So by creating emerging worlds, we're helping future Rameshes to see things that no one else saw and said, let's go do it. And there he is with iNetra. I know some of you know that. And what we've been doing is research courses, gatherings, and camps, incubators, and sandboxes, and we're doing it bi-directional. And this is a future of research that's open, and it's a platform that can leverage a number of things. And here we are pulling stuff together at the university. Here we are working with some of our partners. And here's some of the talent that we've sourced. And swap in some of the other places in the world, some of the other emerging markets, and how we can also create a model that can do good. Here's the former president of India saying, wow, this is amazing. And here's Boston. Some of you flew in yesterday or the day before. The future of cities, as we believe it, is not infrastructure, but it's data. And we loved the Kumbh Mela because it was a way we could do something at scale, a city in a big scale, and test a number of things. And the innovators that we pulled together did a number of projects like this. And this guy was 14 when I first met him. Can you stand up? Let's see how tall you are now. You're going to hear from him later. He's one of the innovators that created something that had a big impact on safety. So we've created this emerging worlds effort, and it's a legit effort, and it's something that can have a profound impact on the world. Ramesh always says we want to impact 5 billion people through this. And at our last event, these were some of the folks that came. We had a number of leaders from India come, and we played the first cricket at Fenway Park. And we want to do this for leaders around the world to collaborate. And so we've been in India in these 3 places. Think about how this effort with you guys could help grow this. And we've gotten some press, a Nobel Peace Laureate, a billionaire, Ratan Tata, Ted. We've been kind of going on the road talking about this. And I'm also excited, Bill Boyle from Sloan brought the president of Wake Forest, and we're getting some other talent in the board involved. So we want to go fractal with this. We want to go big. Now, Vlad, could you please come up here? Okay, so if we're going to go big, we need the top leader at MIT. I'm sure right now Caltech and Stanford are trying to figure out how to get this guy to be president. He didn't ask me to say that, but I guarantee you they have people watching every move he makes. Vlad is a big deal, and he's a big deal because he is an innovator. He is in charge of innovation at MIT. He co-heads it with a Sloan faculty. But he's the scientist, the engineer who oversees the innovation effort for the university. He also is overseeing a $500 million center, the Nano Center. I'm really proud that his office is outside of it. He's not building some big cush office inside. He wants it space for the students. Before this, he helped 700 investigators and helped coordinate $80 million for research. He has been cited 10,000 times at least. He has like 75 patents. He also has a number of companies. He has like 200 people that work at companies he personally started. So he gets the entrepreneur side. He gets the solving problems. He gets the scaling. He went to Princeton. He got the highest award for teaching here. And he was one of Tech Review's top 100. He's probably number 1 of the 100. But what I like about him the most is he's an amazing dad. And these are his kids. He's a professional mime on the side. If you need him, he'll probably come to your party and do miming and scientific stuff. He's a national treasure, and we get him at MIT, and he believes in what we're doing. And for us to go fractal, we also need to kind of work with the amazing leaders inside the MIT ecosystem to make sure we're coordinated. Ladies and gentlemen, Vladimir Bulovic.
Wow. Thank you. Well, John,
that's way over the top. I do try to be useful, and that's really the only way I describe myself. There are many, many things that MIT delivers, and guys like me, there are a few of us around that indeed very much care. By few, I mean 1,000. There are 1,000 professors of MIT. And a lot of what we look at is asking, how do we make impact that truly transforms what we want to do? So my goal for this talk will be to tell you a few things that MIT broadly is doing. Media Lab is a gem within MIT. I mean, the amazing thing about this space is as you're walking in this auditorium, you're passing by technology. You can see it through the windows. It's very open and very inviting. And as a result, it very clearly portrays MIT's commitment to being able to transform those technical ideas into world impact. Media Lab has done it for over the past 30 years. So as I look forward and ask, well, what else does MIT offer? It turns out MIT offers a tremendous amount of Media Lab-like entities. And indeed, we have an ecosystem where we let 1,000 flowers bloom and then collect the best ideas in order to be able to allow them to grow bigger. So if I'm going to describe innovation in general, innovation as a word, right, as a word cloud, connects to anything you touch. These days, you can think about a variety of processes in a variety of organizations that are all in some way innovation. But what do we mean by innovation at MIT is what I want to tell you about right now as I talk to you. I'll give you a couple of examples, couple of projections of where we might want to be going, and then a couple of, call it, challenges that we face as we move things forward. So at MIT, the innovation is taking an idea to impact. And a very simple way of thinking it is come up with a great thought and then make sure 1 million people plus can use it. Billion, hopefully, but start with 1 million and see how long will it take you to scale there. So if I'm going to divide innovation and ask what are the different elements of it, there is the practice of innovation and the science of innovation. The practice of innovation are things that guys like me do, what I call hacks, that understand science and technology and take the next step in thinking about what can you do with it in order to make something that the world needs. Then there is the science of innovation. There is a rhyme and reason why innovation happens. Some ecosystems are more effective than others in launching ideas. It is the connection between individuals that leads you to be able to generate the next set of ideas a little bit more effectively. You also know that the second startup or the second company you launch will be likely more effective than the first one you did, which means there must have been learning between your first and the second step, third and on. Science of innovation is what many of our colleagues at MIT study. Hence, Innovation Initiative as an entity, there's a logo up there on the top, is indeed an entity that combines the practice and science, myself being focused primarily on practice, and my colleague Fiona Murray in the Sloan School of Management focusing on the science of innovation. And then together we can provide a much better perspective on where innovation needs to head. Indeed, if you look at the 1,000 flowers blooming across MIT, the innovation entrepreneurship ecosystem is quite rich. These are just some of many more organizations I could have listed and many student groups. There are on the order of 30 student groups right now focused on entrepreneurship and innovation. And then these are some of the most observable other entities that you might find in our ecosystem of launching ideas into impact. And there are stages of it. You know, stages from 1 to 7 emphasize just the idea of inspiration, development of technology, commercial planning, development of business plans, and on until you finally have the large-scale deployment of those ideas. Well, can I give you some examples? And there are many to cite. So I just paged through the MIT News, and if you do so, you'll find many stories. You can also go to a website, innovation.mit.edu, and you'll find a whole series of innovation active activities across the campus. So let's give you a couple of stories. So here is a student who graduated in 2012. Bulovic is her name, and she's from Nigeria, Lagos. Now, growing up in Nigeria, she realized that much of her family lived in a part of town that was not particularly well taken care of. Indeed, the trash that would accumulate in the streets was such because the streets were too narrow and the trucks that collected couldn't indeed collect them. The recyclables were just lying around rather than being recycled, which of course is not an issue for the developing world. It's some of those issues that you think for the developed world to worry about. After all, recycling seems like a luxury. But over 60% of the trash that was left behind indeed would cause a variety of issues. They would clog the drains and cause flooding. They would make muddy water. They would indeed cause stagnant water where mosquitoes would breed, malaria would spread. So one question she had in her mind is there a technology she can invent, a very simple idea that would be able to be socially scalable and hence impactful? And taking a D-Lab class, D-Lab is one of the entities on MIT campus, that was taught by a Media Lab lecturer on how to scale ventures in developing world. She came up with an idea. She said, how about this? How about we generate recycling centers? Recycling centers will, well, simply be open for people to come by and drop off their recyclables, and we'll go ahead and sell those recyclables to recycling companies, and as a result, earn a little money that we can give back to the community. Anytime you brought something back, you got a few points. After a few points accumulate, you can cash in your points for silverware or appliances like toaster ovens, like refrigerators. Those are the things that would move people from their present living in the slums of Lagos to a much, much better improvement in their life. So she tried the idea, and indeed it gone to the Trust Center for Entrepreneurship, again, an entity just around the corner here, that guides students through the steps of launching an idea. And then gone ahead and spent a summer at so-called Global Founder Skills Accelerator, another program also at MIT that allows you to spend 3 months perfecting your idea. Global Founder Skill Accelerator coaches about a dozen groups every summer. It has over 100 applications for those dozen spots, practically 10-to-1 ratio of the desire to learn how to launch ideas to our availability to be able to coach people right now on campus. So being able to scale that up indeed led her to say, all right, let's try it out. And they tried, indeed, through the Legatum Center that provided them a seed grant, the test program. It didn't work. For all of their attempts to actually get people to recycle, people were typically tired at the end of the day, and walking to a recycling center did not work for them. So they said, how about this? Can we go ahead and develop a fleet of bicycles with the wagons on their back? And those bicyclers, or as they're now known as Wecyclers, will go around town and collect from your home the recyclables. The program started in 2012. By 2015, there were 6,500 families that signed up, 30,000 individuals affected by this. Indeed, the program employs about 75 individuals. About 25 of those are recyclers. The rest do the sorting and indeed selling of the items. The families earn points and indeed can improve their lives and at the same time improve the town they live in and the community they happen to reside in. A brilliant idea that makes a win-win-win all around. And working with the government of Nigeria, she's looking at ways of expanding this to 1 million households. That would generate on the order of 500,000 jobs, both in making of the bicycles, in recycling, in processing. That's a tremendous impact, especially for a town where 20% employment is not unheard of. So that being said, that idea is just one of the many, many examples our students step into. Our faculty often asks very similar questions, but pretty much asking, first of all, let me ask the premise of my challenge. So Amos Winter looked at India and said about 60% of all of the groundwater in India is too brackish, too salty for it to be used as a drinking water. You can try to desalinate it, but the present system of reverse osmosis is not easily scalable. So through the Tata Center, also right here within Energy Initiative, right around the corner, he's gone ahead and developed a team of students to understand the problem and the opportunity. He made a map of where the salts are really, really high, and then he realized there are different ways of desalinating that also happen to be much more portable. One of the big challenges right in India is the lack of presence of electricity. Even for an electrified village, that really means 10% of the inhabitants have electricity 4 hours a day, which means that opportunity for being able to use energy-intensive systems is simply not there. What they did is they developed a solar-activated system, and indeed, they are testing it out right now. It fits on the back of a truck, and it can be indeed delivered in such format to a local community, and then indeed scaled up as needed. The project has recently been awarded the USAID DSAL award, as it was the only one that could actually meet all the specs as needed in order to be able to meet the needs, not just in India, but in many other dry regions of the world that do have access to salty groundwater that could, if enabled through this system, be enabled to be utilized. So there is a method to the choices that were made by Amos Winter's group, which was simply identifying a challenge and then going ahead and trying to attack it. But one of the challenges you can see by looking at their present installation is the solar panels. Those solar panels, for as desirable as they are, they're actually really hard to manipulate. They're likely the heaviest part of the system, or at least certainly a very important weight-wise. Hence, the delivery of it to a desirable location might be indeed a little bit hard. Can we fix that? Well, I'll give you an example from my own work on the kinds of things you can imagine using reimagining of solar cells in order to help the developing world. This is a picture of a cross-section of a typical solar cell. Take a look on the left, and you see a cross-section of a silicon wafer. Take a look on the right, and you're now talking about emerging tin films that are thinner than a typical red blood cell. Very different scale of things. And a very different scale that allows you to say, well, these emerging tin films that are made of organic materials, how much do they weigh and how thick of a substrate do they need? Well, let me show you. If the film of the active emerging tin film material is a sheet of paper, let me put that sheet of paper, how thick would a piece of glass on which that sheet of paper would be deposited would be? Well, it would be comparable to a skyscraper. That's the ratio between the active and the inactive regions. As a matter of fact, if I give you a 3-millimeter glass, that's 17 grams per watt. If it's a thin film plastic, it's about 0.35 grams per watt. But how much grams does my solar cell weigh? Well, only about 0.303 grams per watt. So if I want to make a tremendous difference in the ability for me to deliver the cell, maybe I want to make it this way. Maybe I want to try making it on a piece of paper. Because if I make it on a piece of paper, it will be extremely light, and maybe I can just paint on these unusual materials that all of us use every day in the forms of pigments or car paints, and that can be used as semiconductors that reimagine solar technology. So this video is of one of those solar cells cut to size and attach the electrodes, shine light on it, and you'll have enough power to run electronic appliances. A very simple technology that through it could actually redefine what we think solar cell can look like. They can now be on any surface. And most importantly, this place that right now is trying to use solar cells because that is the obvious way to provide power for remote locations. Well, this particular installation, there is a tremendous mismatch between that technology and the need. The mismatch is in this, that silicon cell has been designed to last in the typical installation for about 30 years. That unfortunately is way too long from perspective of a typical remote installation where the cell will be broken or maybe stolen in a matter of a year. There's no need to make it 30 years long. There's also no need to make it as expensive as it is, because typically in India it would take about a year's salary to purchase one of these modules. And from the point of view of getting to the village, well, this is how it got to the village, on someone's back. Now, that individual doesn't care about the efficiency of the cell. The only thing they care about as they're carrying the cell is how many watts am I carrying on my back? So give me a lot of power per weight, and you'll be able to give me very effective technology that matches the need of this particular region. What NGOs often refer to as the last 9 miles is a really good, well exemplified through this particular example. The last 9 miles on someone's back that needs to get delivered to the village on an unpaved road. So opportunities are vast if we can reimagine, or let me just state, if we can understand the challenges of technologies that need to be deployed in different parts than the parts of the developed world we are used to. Because this kind of technology can be made extremely light. This is a recent example of a substrate that is even thinner than a saran wrap. It's only about 1 micron thick. You can make it different thicknesses. The one in the middle, down bottom, that's a 1 micron thick Parylene C film, and on it you can grow organic thin films that are your organic solar cell, organic PV, and then encapsulate it with another micron of Parylene, and the whole structure is light enough that if you put it on top of a soap bubble, it just sits there without bending the soap bubble. It weighs so little that it can be placed on any surface without knowing that you're adding the weight or the structure to it. And indeed, you can bend it and twist it, as it's so thin that if you curve it, it's kind of like us standing on Earth. We are so short compared to the curvature of the Earth that we don't even know that it's being curved. Same thing here. So the opportunities in reimagining what a solar power can be is this, or maybe this. This is another solar cell, also made of molecules that, just to help you out, it's right here, trust me. And if you go ahead and shine some light on it and attach electrodes to a voltmeter, that's 106 volts coming out of this piece of glass that happens to absorb sunlight and give you electricity back. Only a microamps of current. However, plenty of power to run your electronic appliances, low power electronic appliances, forever, without ever needing to actually recharge them again. So if the face of your cell phone or an e-book reader or your textbook reader would indeed provide you with such a solar cell, you can, for micrograms of extra weight, provide the function you're looking for. So I'll conclude by telling you just a couple of broader pictures that go beyond those specific examples, and indeed point to the large effort within MIT broadly to understand innovation. That is what Innovation Initiative is about, combining the science and the practice of innovation all in the same role, and looking for venues, such as the emerging world effort, to figure out where can we apply ourselves. As our students, I'm convinced, can solve any problem. They just need to be told what the big challenges are. The next thing then to do is to say, well, our mission is indeed to define and build education pathways for next generation of global innovators. And this is really our imperative. If you look at the growth of students' participation in startup entities, in entities that aim to deliver impact, and a startup entity is one of those ways of judging, are they stepping into a way of making impact? 90% of our students will tell you they want to make sure their job is exciting, inspiring, and meaningful. That meaningful part is the part that leads them towards startups. As they're right now looking at corporate entities and saying the innovation has been minimized in them compared to what the world really, really needs. And the startup gives me an opportunity to try our best to reach an ecosystem that can sustain us. Now, this kind of growth that 10 years ago was 1.5%, now it actually exceeds 20% if you plot last year's data point. That's a tremendous growth in the student demand for innovation, entrepreneurial learning. And we also see that by simply asking, where do students go when they have a chance to attend the next event? This is a final project presentation of a class 2009 product engineering process. Students are asked to make a product for a particular world environment and go ahead and demonstrate to the audience filling the auditorium what that product can do. This is a final exam presentation at MIT. No one has to attend it except for the guys on the stage. Yet 1,200 seats of the auditorium get filled in the first 20 minutes of signups. And 500 additional people wish they could have made it in. Hence it's televised, just to make sure everyone has a chance to see it. That's the kind of community you're surrounded by being right now where you are here today. Community of people who want to make a difference and who marvel at their colleagues' work that makes a tremendous difference. They want to learn so they can be more impactful as they step into the next things to do. And that's also seen in the work they do in the 100K Innovation Prize. This is an award given to one team out of the over 300 that apply, that give the idea. So 300, how many people is that? That's about 1,200 individuals that try to compete for this one award. Indeed, the desire to make a difference is tremendous. And indeed, the very first one, Recyclables idea, was an idea that was recognized by the 100K award. But from our perspective, we need to develop ways of training students in coherent fashion rather than letting just 1,000 flowers bloom. And hence, coordination between centers and opportunities is very, very large. The elements that we are pushing forward, starting in the fall this year, will launch what is known as the minor for entrepreneurship and innovation. It's going to have new courses, problem-solving portfolio rather than just class grades, and indeed opportunities to develop leadership skills through a couple of different centers, giving you the ability to make impact and deliver your ideas. The approach is recognition that there are many stakeholders in the innovation ecosystem. The entrepreneur, or call it the inventor, university that provides intellectual backbone behind the idea, risk capital that allows you to support the basic idea, corporation that might adapt it and help you scale it, and government that allows the infrastructure of laws and processes to allow you to indeed for the ecosystem to flourish. We are looking at this as a very global need. Hence, as we look at MIT, we recognize there are programs already, MISTY Europe, Start MIT, but very importantly, this program, Innovating for Billions, and indeed following the spot, probe, grow, and then scale, and hence deliver impact. Thank you.
So in a moment, you're going to hear from Pratik, but before you go, if you could look into the camera, what do you think of emerging worlds?
Emerging world is an incredible opportunity for all of us from perspective of being able to bring the goodness to the rest of the world, the goodness that we experience here, John, and the ability for us to recognize what are the greatest of challenges that all of us can apply ourselves on so we can uplift all of us.
And I think you're helping oversee a lot of efforts that are identifying MIT talent that can do good. I think this platform is finding partners like the people represented here that can interface with them. What do you suggest as we try to collaborate and have impact? How should we be working with your innovation efforts?
Yeah.
I know your nano center, like 60% of all research and science at MIT is nano, so I feel like you're going to be a very powerful dude once that building's built, and we want you to know us, and we want to work with you. And I bet a Stanford and Caltech recruiters in this audience right now.
John, I think the right way to put it, the MIT will be dramatically enabled through the building of the new nanocenter. Indeed, over 60% of what we do is based on nanoscale, is it biology or chemistry, material science. Solutions to the world are actually built from atoms up. So we start with atoms, we build handheld objects. Is it for water desalination? Is it for solar cells? Is it whatever else that we do? I think the message to you it would be to say, engage with us. We can solve any problem, we just do not know what to work on. Because we are not immersed in the right environment, not exposed to the right environment without taking 10 trips to India. And hence the easiest way to help us out, understand what is it that we could help with, what is it that we should apply ourselves towards to make a true difference in the world to many, many billions, is indeed to be with us. Spend time at MIT, spend time embedded in our research groups, help actually work together on a variety of ideas that would make a tremendous difference to you, and then serve as an emissary going back to carry the best of our knowledge that we can provide and inform us of the best of the external knowledge so we can be better in solving the next set of issues.
Great. So if anyone wants a picture with Vlad, he'll be around a little bit, get a lock of hair, executive. But thank you for your time. Thank you for getting to know what we're doing. And I see the best is ahead because we have stakeholders and leaders like you understanding what we're about.